Hello everyone, my name is Chipperonio and today I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks for PvP that you may take in as a basic, as a starter, whatever you want to call it. Now, there are many different elements that can be able to affect PvP in many ways, such as your techniques of PvPing, the texture pack you're using, and etc. And obviously you have to take into consideration all of them. And consistency of you and your PvP relies mostly on how comfortable you feel when you play, such as your keybind and your hotkeying, and whether it feels nice to you. So, first thing you definitely want to note is that please, the first thing you do is go into your control menu, look through all the different controls, and see whether there are any of them that you feel uncomfortable with. Now, we don't really need to go into the streaming or the multiplayer settings, most of them are just personal preference, but you want to make sure that every key in the inventory, in miscellaneous, and movement has to be close together, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C, X, Z, and R. Those keys are very close to my movement key, which is WASD, and I sprint using F key. Now, of course, you can still use scroll wheel, but this is mostly based on experience. If you have experience, then when you scroll through your inventory, you will guarantee every time that you scroll the correct item. However, if you only just started playing Minecraft and Minecraft PvP, then I suggest not doing it, because you don't know if you're gonna land exactly on the slot or just one off, which often is the main weakness of scroll wheeling. But there are many PvPers out there that use scroll wheels, so don't hesitate to use it if you feel comfortable with it. Now, the next thing, which is not necessarily a crucial one, but is an important one to note, is the texture pack that you're going to use. And another thing you have to note here is on texture pack. Now, there are some things that you have to consider. Number one, that your texture pack has to be clean. Every texture of it has to look nice, not overcomplicated, and easy to recognize. Another thing is that you have to be able to distinguish between each and every item, such as these swords right here, which I designed myself. I can recognize it by the color of it. And ES armor, of course I keep the default texture pack, but obviously if you're going to make a texture pack or you're going to use a texture pack, then you have to take into consideration, do these look different from each other or do they look kind of similar? If they look kind of similar, skip it. Or you can just mix in elements of different skin, but I don't recommend doing that because, no one likes stealing and mixing skins. Now, on to the next one, is your technique when you PvP. Now, when PvPing, there's obviously a lot of different methods that you can use to ensure that your opponent is going to be in a disadvantage. And you want to maximize your odds as much as possible because when PvPing, you do not want to put yourself in a disadvantage. There are many different simple strategies that you would often see, but people don't really tell these to you because probably your favorite Minecraft PvP YouTubers don't really tell you about it, or it's just that it's very concealed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle my keystroke mod. As you can see, it will be able to show you exactly which key I press, including left and right click, of course. So the first thing you want to know is W tapping or S tapping. Now there are obviously many different methods to this, and I can't really go into detail of different ways, but my favorite and most simple method is W tapping. Now, what is W tapping? Well, it's pretty much just spamming the W key, but not exactly. So when you W tab, you want to make sure that there's a random but specific interval. So obviously, you want to time. Alright, I'm gonna put on the armor first. You want to time exactly when to hit your opponent. Now, why did I choose the zombie pigman? Well, because he's decently fast, almost as fast as a player, but this is what you would expect from an average player. Obviously, when you are familiar with it, then you're gonna know exactly when to W tap. And honestly, I don't know exactly when either. All I know is that I hit and then I W tap. But since you're gonna be spam clicking anyways, might as well just W tap whenever you feel like it. So you're gonna see me fight the zombie pigman. You may look at the keybinds, the keystrokes, and from there do your own analyzing. Because, well, I can't do it for you. Alright. And obviously, when you PvP, you have to strafe. You want to make sure that your strafing pattern is random. Now, there are many different strafing patterns, which obviously I can't get into. One of the most common strafing patterns is obviously the circular pattern, the A and D alternation pattern, and then, well, just don't strafe at all. But obviously that would require you to be very good. Now another thing I want to tell you, and although it may seem like the video is going too fast, but don't worry, I'll make it simple for you guys. Please, if you have a rod, use it. Or just any sorts of projectiles. It could be snowballs, it could be eggs, it could literally be the bow as well. Oh god. Now, why the rod? Because, well, it's called Minecraft mechanics. So whenever you hit a mob or a player with it, basically any entities, you hit it, then it deals knockback. You're going to use that knockback in order to create yourself an advantage. Because that knockback is going to make the entity a little higher in the air. And due to Minecraft mechanic, then whatever is higher in the air is harder to be able to hit the things that lower in the ground. I won't get too in-depth into how this works, so that's pretty much most of the simple techniques. There's obviously the infinite rod technique, which is just switching between the rod and the sword, but it doesn't really matter if you go for like duels or something like that. And most of the time you don't really need the infinite rod technique, so yeah, that's basically it. Now, next up is with the bow. The reason why I put the bow into its own like category, because you know, there's just so much to the bow. Its mechanic is not the same to the other things. There's literally something called bow jewel because of its different mechanic. So, I'm gonna place a zombie pigman here. Now, what you want to make sure when you bow, please at least try strafing. If you're fighting another player who's also bowing, then please at least try and strafe. Hang on, let me get a skeleton, and I'll be right back. So, if you're going to fight your opponent, let's say this skeleton. I forgot something. So, if you're going to go into a bow fight, then the first thing you have to remember is try and continuously strafe. Even if it's just, you know, these kind of boring line strafe, at least just strafe. And using the sword strafe method that I've taught you earlier, Obviously, you're just not gonna go like in a circular strafe like that, but you're gonna try and at least alternate between A and B. Now, there's a more advanced method to strafing, but you'll need to practice a lot, which is the jump, sprint, sort of like strafe. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure if it even has a name, but basically, hold out the bow, like this, and then just jump and move to the side and strafe. Simple as that. Hold your bow out, shoot, and then strafe to the side. Do it fast. You have to do it like real fast. Like when you get into combat, there's no time talking, no time to talk. You have to be able to maneuver between side to side, and if there's hundreds of opponents, then you have to be able to know to fight them all at once, while strafing in a uncoordinated way, random as possible. And typically after doing this a while, you're gonna get used to it. It's just gonna become your skill set, whatnot. You're gonna get used to it. It's not very difficult, you know what I mean? Oh, and speaking of strafing, look! Our opponent is strafing! What do we do? So, please, whatever you do, don't trace the minecart. Especially when you're far away from this, don't trace the minecart like that. Because not only the bow is not like a gun, it just does. Oh my god, I landed that shot. You typically don't want to like put your cursor and trace the minecart like this. No, you want to, if you're going to trace, at least trace it a little ahead of itself. Because the bow mechanic is not the same as a gun mechanic. It just doesn't shoot the same as a gun. And especially if it's a low charge bow, then obviously it's not going to work the same. So what you want to do is to trace it in front of it where you think it's going to come up next. And typically in fast-paced fights, when, you know, which is pretty much every single PvP fight, then you have to know how to strafe, and then to hit people who are strafing, just like you are. You have to predict your opponent's movement, and just go with it. Now the last thing and the most important thing out of all of the things that I've said, please, whenever you PvP, always be conscious and be aware of everything that's going on at once. And there are many elements where you have to be aware of, whether your opponent is eating a gapple or healing up, whether you are running low on health and you need to chug up, and in what way can you be able to distract your opponent or find ways to be able to stop your opponent from getting close to you so you have enough time to be able to heal up. Obviously, for cases of splash potion, then none of that is necessary because, you know, you can heal up instantly. But for when you want to heal up with golden apples, then obviously we really need to get into this. So I'm gonna put down a few zombie pigments. Let's hit one of them. Let's let them hit me a few times. This is gonna take a while. Let's let them hit me a few times. I'm noticing. Oh my god, my health is running low. Oh. Alright, I run. FA. FA. F5. I try bowing them off. Chug up apples. And then go back into the fight. Simple as that. You just have to be aware of what's going on. And then use your awareness to plan out instant decisions to be able to survive the situation that is going on around you. Overall, if you want to get better at PvP, the only thing you can do is to practice. I can't guarantee you that after you use these tips and tricks, you're going to get extremely good at PvP or anything. But for beginners, a lot of them don't know how to do any of these, but I've seen that after using many of these steps, I find them being somewhat better than they were before, which is good news, of course. But the most important thing is to practice a lot. Anyhow, that's it for my tips and tricks on PvP. This is only for 1.8. I repeat, this is only for 1.8 PvPers. With the new mechanics in 1.9 and above, then I can't really guarantee you that any of these tricks even work at all. But I hope you enjoy, and I will see you next time.